Good afternoon, Leestown Chargers. Hello, Miss Vogel here today. I've changed my hat from counselor to hard-hitting journalist today. Today, we are going to have a conversation with one of our esteemed alumni here from Leestown Middle School, Allyson Thomas. She's going to be here with us today, and I'm going to read a little bit about her. Allyson works at NASA as a Deputy Hardware Manager of SLS adapters. She works with the SLS Space Launch System, which is the heavy lifting launch vehicle that is currently being developed for crew and cargo missions to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. The adapters she is responsible for are large cones used to adapt the upper stage of the rocket to the crew module or the payload, depending on the mission. As the hardware manager, she is responsible for making sure the adapter designs meet NASA technical requirements and stay on track to meet the budget and schedule. I bet that's the hard part, the budget and the schedule. Allyson lives in Huntsville, Alabama and works at the Marshall Flight Center. She has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Kentucky, and she is married to Alex Thomas, who also works for NASA and is also a Leestown graduate. So this is exciting. We have two esteemed Leestown graduates in the same household. So I don't know, that's pretty exciting. And I think she has one child and another one that will be arriving, a new little astronaut next week, if she's lucky.
That's correct.
Yes. So I'm going to pass it on to Allyson, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she does. So I'm excited, and I wore my NASA shirt today so that I could be in the mood. So, all right, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. I love your shirt. It's great. So I do have a little bit of an audio delay. So just so everyone knows, if it takes me a while to respond, that's why.
You're not on the moon, though, right?
I was able to get a few. Say that again?
You're not on the moon, though, right?
No, it's not because I'm on the moon. That's a good question, though. But you did send over some questions from the students, and I thought I might just open up by answering a few of those because I thought that they were really great questions. I can tell from the questions that the students are really, they know their science and they know their space stuff. So I'm excited to kind of dive into those first, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So, all right, great. So the first question is, how did you get a job at NASA? So I went to the University of Kentucky, and we actually had a career fair, and NASA came to the career fair, and I was able to get an interview with the representative there for a co-op. So I was able to get the co-op that way, and the way the co-op works is I did a semester at NASA and then a semester back at UK, and I alternated that for 3 different co-op rotations. And then when I graduated, they extended an opportunity for me to work there full time. So definitely an internship or a co-op is a really, really great way to get your foot in the door with NASA. It used to be the only way that they would hire people, especially if they're having a hiring freeze. Fortunately, right now they're not, though. So they're hiring lots of people right now. So it's a good time if you want to work at NASA. So can you tell us about your college requirements? So for college, I studied mechanical engineering, so it was very heavy in math and science. It went up to calculus 4. A lot of people call that differential equations, so that was the highest math level. And then for science, it was physics and chemistry and all of the basics to get a good background. And then it got more into thermal dynamics and that sort of thing, which is more specialized to engineering and mechanical engineering in general. Let's see. Oh, I like this one. So what steps did you take after middle school to get in this spot? So middle school was actually kind of a long time ago for me, so I've taken a lot of steps since then. So after middle school, I went to Dunbar. I was in the magnet program at Dunbar my freshman year, and it was really challenging. It was actually I would say more difficult than my first year of college. And the reason for that is it was a very challenging curriculum. And then also, when you're in high school, you're doing your extracurriculars. For me, I did ballet, and that was full time. And it got to the point where I needed to make a decision. Did I want to just stop doing ballet and just focus 100% on school, or did I want to have more of a balance? So I actually ended up deciding to drop out of the magnet program and continue with ballet, and it ended up working out okay. In the end, I was still able to take AP classes and get a really good, strong science background, but then get into the University of Kentucky and continue down that path without killing myself. So I think that's a good message, is you have to kind of determine what your limitations are, and how you want to balance yourself and what you want to prioritize in your life, because you can't do everything. So if you follow your passions, you'll end up where you want to be ultimately, and I think that's really something to strive for when you're making decisions. What kind of training did you have to go through after college? So I really like that question, because you think if you're in college for 4 years, you learn everything you need to know for engineering, but really I went in as a designer, and the main thing that I started out doing was drawing. So they didn't really teach us how to do drawings in college. We learned how to use software called, at the time it was called Pro Engineer, and now it's called Creo, it's updated. But I did learn how to use that software in college, which was really good, because that's what we use at NASA for design. But as far as taking the designs, the 3D images, and turning that into a drawing that you can actually produce hardware from, that's not something that we learned in college, and that's something that I did have to learn once I was at NASA, and just how to do the dimensioning and the tolerancing to make sure that the parts fit together. So that was a lot of on-the-job training that pretty much nobody really gets that in college. You get that once you graduate and once you're working full-time. So that was a big one. And then we're constantly doing just training to stay up to date on the latest techniques and methods, and then also a lot of soft skills. So how to get along with each other, how to listen. You'd be surprised, but adults need to learn how to listen and be refreshed about how to listen quite often. So it's good, because we work in a lot of teams, and I think that's another question is, do I work by myself primarily or in teams? And really, we don't get anything done at NASA unless we're working together in a group and really communicating. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of teamwork, and we take training to help us with that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how fun is your job? And on the same scale, how hard is your job? So I would say how fun it is, probably it depends on the day. Some days it's more of a 10, sometimes it's more of a 5. When we're getting close to a launch, that's definitely more exciting. But then sometimes there's a lot of paperwork that you have to do. So that's a little bit less fun, but it's necessary to get to where you're going. So how hard it is, so it depends kind of what I'm working on. So I started out working in design, and it was difficult at first because I needed to learn how to do the drawings and follow the standards and all of that. But after like 5 years of that, you get into a rhythm, and it actually isn't that hard. But then after I worked there for a while, I switched over to project management. And so then that was a whole new set of things to learn. So it was difficult, and I'm actually probably about a year into project management. So I'm still kind of in a place where it's challenging, which I think is good. It's good to be in a place where you're being challenged. Let's see. Oh, I like this one. So since the engineering directorate is specialized into 9 different offices, which one do you mainly work in? I thought that was really impressive. Somebody must have done their research on that one. So I started out in EV, so that's the vehicle design group, and I lived there for almost 10 years before I went into the project office. So I'm not an engineering director anymore, but that was where I was in EV, so the vehicle design when I was there. Let's see. All right, and then I'll wrap it up with this one. How do you work at NASA with coronavirus going on? So that's also a really good question. So Marshall Space Flight Center, where I work, we're on mandatory telework status stage 3. So that means that everyone is required to work from home, and we've been in the mandatory telework status since March. So we've all actually been working from home this whole time. Some of the hardware that I work on is being manufactured here at Marshall Space Flight Center. So we have to file paperwork to get the appropriate people on the center and make sure that the appropriate precautions are taken once they're on the center to stay safe from the virus. But we really have been limiting the number of people, and I haven't been in except for one time to get my office chair. But other than that, I've been working from home since March. So it's surprising how much we're able to get done working from home. You don't have the commute anymore, so you actually have a little bit more time to focus on work. A lot of the people that I work with in the project office don't have young children, so they're able to be very, very productive. There were 2 months in the beginning where we didn't have childcare, so that was very challenging. But now that we have childcare again, it's actually been pretty awesome working from home because you just get up and you start working and you can get a lot done. I'm not a big small talker, so a hidden benefit is that I don't have to talk to people around the microwave at work anymore. So, which is good. It's good for team building to talk to people, but sometimes you get sucked into a conversation and it's hard to get out of it. So ultimately, it has resulted in us being a little bit more productive because you don't have that, and you do talk to the people you need to, but you set up very specific meetings because they're at home. You have to call us to talk to them. And I haven't had to answer questions about like, oh, I've noticed that you're getting more pregnant. No one's asked me about that, so it's been really nice. All right, so that kind of sums up the questions. I thought that they were an excellent way to do an intro. I'm going to try to pull up a PowerPoint and talk to you a little bit about the vehicle that I've been working on. But before I do that, can I do a sound check? Am I coming in clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
Okay, awesome. All right, let me see if I can pull up my PowerPoint.
While she's doing that, just so everyone knows, we have some more hard-hitting questions at the end that we're going to ask. So I still have some of your other questions. I thought they would just be more fun to end do at the ending. So, so if you didn't hear your question, it still might be on there.
Yes. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So starting from a big picture perspective, what I'm working on is getting us back to the moon by 2024. It's actually the Vice President came to Marshall Space Flight Center and mandated that we go back to the moon by 2024 and that we land on the South Pole and that we establish a sustained presence there. So it's not like the first time where we went, hit some golf balls, and came back. We're actually going to have lunar habitat, and people will be living on the moon and stay on the moon for long duration. And that is what we are working toward right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the vehicle that we're working on to get us there, and then also just kind of breaking down why we're going to the moon. Here we go. Why go to the moon? So, and I'm kind of covering this up. Let me see if I can move. There we go. Okay. So, It establishes an American leadership and strategic presence. I mean, we went to the moon the first time, so we're gonna, lead the charge going back. And then also there are a lot of technologies that come out of any type of space exploration, but especially going to the moon. And then also just the inspirational aspect of going to the moon. Our generation really hasn't had that, so there's multiple benefits to it, but I think science and also just bringing us together as a planet are some of the big ones. All right, so the last time we went to the moon, we went to the equator, which is kind of in the middle right there. This time, we're going down to the South Pole. So the reason we're going down to the South Pole is because you have a lot of sunlight, so you can make sure that you're controlling your environment and you have a predictable environment where the temperature stays relatively consistent and you're not having to worry about the nighttime temperatures, which are very, very cold. Another benefit, though, there are regions on the South Pole that are permanently shadowed. And what this means is those are good candidates for water ice. So there, I don't know how many of you know, there is actually water on the moon. It's in the form of ice, kind of in a permafrost down there. So what our astronauts will be doing is looking at that water and seeing how we can use that to help us get further out into the solar system, be that for harvesting it for fuel or for radiation protection. So there are a lot of possibilities there. All right, you go to the next chart. All right, so here's our phase one, which is to get humans to the moon by 2024. So our first launch is actually next year, and it's going to be Artemis 1, and that's the first human spacecraft that's going to go around the moon in the 21st century. So it will not have humans on it, but it is a test flight to make sure that we have everything worked out before we put humans on the vehicle for the Artemis 2 mission. And that one will be in orbit of the moon, and then the very end, we'll have, at the end of that line, in 2024, we'll have Artemis 3, which is the crewed mission. And I don't know if these charts really go into it, but we have a really interesting architecture this time. In order to get to the South Pole, we actually have to have an orbiting platform. We're calling it the Gateway, and it's basically a mini International Space Station, but it orbits the moon. So the Artemis 3 rocket will get us to that space station, and then from there we go down to the moon. All right, what it takes to come home safely. So below Earth orbit, that is where the International Space Station is. It just takes 3 hours, so it's a relatively quick trip to get back. It's not very hot. Well, it's hot, but it's not as hot as coming back from the moon, which takes 3 days. And it's even a warmer re-entry, and it's a further distance. And that's a good stepping stone to get us to the Mars return, which takes significantly longer. We're 9 months away, and it gets really, really hot, and we're really, really far away. So that's kind of, without coming out and saying it, and that's why we're going to the moon first, is it's kind of a good stepping stone to get us to Mars, which is significantly more time and a further distance than low Earth orbit, where we're primarily functioning right now. All right, so this is the rocket that's going to get us here. This is SLS and Orion. So when we went to the moon the first time, we went on Saturn V. This time, the rocket is called SLS, which is Space Launch System. And then the crew capsule on top is called the Orion. So it's capable of carrying and sustaining crew on missions to deep space. So not only to the moon, but further out, it can go to Mars. And it has the power and the capability required to carry astronauts on board the Orion spacecraft, which is very heavy. So we need a big rocket to carry that. All right, so this is the breakdown of the Block 1 configuration of the rocket. So the Block 1 is crew only. We don't have a payload on it other than the people. The people are the main payload. And you can see here, this adapter right here is the Orion stage adapter. And it adapts the upper stage of the vehicle to the crew module. And that is one of the pieces of hardware that I'm responsible for. So the Orion stage adapter. All right, so here are some different configurations. So, the Saturn V took us to the moon. Well, that, applies to other Saturns. There's Saturn 1B, so Saturn 1. So here are some different configurations of the rocket. Our first one to launch is going to be the Block 1, crew only. We have this one right here, which is a Block 1 with cargo only. And then these can do crew and cargo. So this is crew and cargo. There's actually cargo in here. And what might that cargo be? So an example of what the cargo would be one of the modules for the space station that's orbiting the moon could potentially be the cargo, or the lander for the humans going to land on the moon. This one would be cargo only, and then these two are crew and cargo, but with massive boosters that can go even farther. So those are future upgrades. All right, so this is just a little bit more information about the rocket. I'm not going to read all of this, but the point is large volume, it can carry a lot of mass, and it packs a lot of energy. So, keep going. All right, so solid rocket boosters. For the space shuttle, we had solid rocket boosters that had 4 segments. The ones that are going on SLS have 5 segments, so they're bigger. And we're working on developing those right now for the first launch. And they've actually been assembled and have fired already. So we are making progress on that. The engines are refurbished from the Space Shuttle main engine. They're actually called RS-25s now. And there are 4 of them on the core stage of the rocket. And those have been assembled onto the core stage, and they've actually been tested. And we're working on the green run right now. I'll talk about that in a little bit later slide. So the core stage, you can see it highlighted on the left here, is really a large portion of the rocket, and that carries your fuel and your oxidizers. So for us, the fuel that we have is liquid hydrogen, and the oxidizer is liquid oxygen. And those are both housed in that main core stage section. The core stage has been fully welded. It was welded up in Louisiana at the Machine Assembly Facility, and it's been shipped to the Space Center in Mississippi, where they are currently doing the firing test of it. And there it is in the test stand. The firing test is called green run, and so they're working through that right now. There's multiple firings that take place, and I think they're about halfway through the green run testing right now. All right, in space stage and adapter, so that's me. There's the OSA right there. So that actually adapts the upper stage of the rocket to the crew vehicle. This is a shot of the processing facility at Kennedy Space Center. So we actually have the hardware down there already. It's ready to go. This is the upper stage of the rocket, and so this will go on top of that, and we'll be stacking that shortly in preparation for our launch next year. Okay, so this is a little bit of a breakdown about what happens with Artemis-1. So the astronauts actually orbit, or Artemis-1, the capsule orbits the Earth one time, and then it will go up, orbit the moon, and come back. And one of the cool things, other than it just being a good re-entry test for the crew vehicle, we also have, oh, my PowerPoint has stopped working, and I only have one slide left. We have CubeSat. So the CubeSat, let's see. Let me see if I can get it pulled back up, because my last chart, it talks about the payload, which is CubeSat. There we go. All right. Are you able to, oh no, it said it stopped screen sharing. Let me just share again. All right, there we go. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Great. So what this is it's kind of a breakdown of the different CubeSats. There are multiple, I think there's about 13 that will be launching, and they'll actually be inside of the Orion phase vector. They'll be mounted on the inside of the structure that I work on. So they're about this big, they're small, but they are able to accomplish different missions. And this is kind of a breakdown of the different ones. But the core I wanted to show you guys was the lunar ice cube. So that's actually Moorhead State University of Kentucky is responsible for that one, and it will be used to look for ice on the moon. So lots of cool science being accomplished, even though there is no crew. All right, and that's all I had. So I heard that there's some more questions for me, and just to remind everyone, there's a delay, so ask away.
Oh, okay. Well, I was wondering, just this is my question, I guess. So we hear a lot about SpaceX and that they're doing things for NASA. Does SpaceX have anything to do with this, or is this completely a NASA endeavor?
That's a good question. So this is completely NASA at this point. It's a collaborative effort between NASA and also the European Space Agency as far as developing the space station that's orbiting the moon. The European Space Agency is contributing to that as well as NASA, and there are opportunities to build, as we build that up, for private industry to come in and add modules there. But really what SpaceX is helping us with in regards to this is indirectly because they're helping us get to the space station so that we don't have to focus on that anymore. So by helping us to focus our budget and our time and our resources for the space launch system, they're actually helping us out a whole lot. So we're really grateful that they have taken on that challenge.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, we have one question that a student wants to know. Have you ever been in space?
I have not been in space, but I have been on the Vomit Comet, which allows you to be weightless and do weightless research. And the way that it works is you go on an airplane and it does a parabola trajectory, and at the top of it, it's kind of like when you throw a ball up, you're weightless before you fall back down or as you're falling back down. So you get about 30 seconds of weightlessness followed by 30 seconds of 2Gs at the bottom, and it just kind of repeats like that. And I was able to do that when I was in college, and it was a research experiment that I did, and I got to do it actually two different years. So that's the closest I've been to being in space. And I'm good with that. I don't know if I want to go to outer space, but it was cool to experience weightlessness for sure.
So if they need an engineer on the moon, you're not going.
So you learn a lot. the rocket and how much it's like a missile or a bomb, like controlled explosion underneath you. So people who are astronauts are very, very brave to get on top of a controlled explosion. I don't really think that I'm really cut out for that. So I'll just stay here, and that's good enough for me.
And what did you say the name of that was that you went on?
Vomit Comet.
It's called the Vomit Comet.
I take it there are some people
A lot of
that
people have
a reaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I fortunately was not one of those, but one of my classmates, I think maybe she went to the back of the plane at one point. I'm not sure what happened back there, but
What happens in space stays in space, I guess. Okay.
exactly.
Another question that we have is, if you could have a different job at NASA, what would that be?
So I think it is so cool, all of the animations that they do at NASA in order to show and communicate our missions and what we're doing. So I think it would be so cool to be an animator for NASA. The ship has sailed for me. I think it's probably too late for me to switch to that, but early on in my career, I did try to do some rotations into the animation area, and it's so cool. It's the coolest job. They put it in the basement, though. I don't know why. So there's that. I like to have windows and sunlight. But other than that, yeah, I think that would have been a really cool career path.
Okay. All right. So I think you kind of answered this one, but do you ever think we'll make it to Mars?
Yes, we are going to make it to Mars. We're shooting for the 2030s right now, so that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at right now. Stepping stone to the moon and then on to Mars.
All right. I hope we make it, because my favorite movie is The Martian, but I hope that doesn't happen. What happened in The Martian?
Oh no, that's a great group. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question about OSIRIS-REx. The OSIRIS-REx satellite is supposed to be landing or taking a piece. Can you explain what's going on with that, and did you ever work on it?
All right, so I actually haven't worked on OSIRIS-REx. The cool thing about NASA is we have 11 field centers. So there's actually 11 centers throughout the country that are working on different missions. The center that I work at is Marshall, and we work on propulsion and really getting the rocket off the ground is our main focus. So we don't do as many of the science missions, although we do some. OSIRIS-REx, I don't know where it's based at. I think it might be Goddard, but I bet your very intelligent students probably can Google it and tell me before I could. But I have seen it in the news, and I think it's really awesome, and I love to hear about what other centers are doing, because it's just fascinating, the science and all the different things going on.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be on a moving asteroid and trying to get the dirt off of it and collecting it to come back to Earth and analyze.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's very amazing.
So,
yeah. All right. Okay, so another question one of our students had is, was there anyone that inspired you to work for NASA or to be an engineer?
Yes, actually, my grandfather, he is 93 years old. He's actually still living here in Huntsville, Alabama, and he worked at NASA before it was even NASA. So
Wow.
he actually grew up here in Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah, and he grew up here. His family worked in the cotton mills. That was the main industry here. And then the arsenal came to Huntsville, and it was the Army installation. And then I guess in the 50s, late 50s, it was part of the arsenal was converted into NASA. So he actually worked on the arsenal, and then he became the liaison between the Army and NASA, and then eventually converted over to NASA, where he went on to lead the engine office at NASA. So he definitely took an engineer. He was a chemical engineer, which is actually even harder than mechanical engineering, which is really impressive because he was one of the first people in my family to go to college. And so he became a chemical engineer. He worked a lot on the engines, and then as an engineer, and then he went into management to manage that hardware, which is actually, it's really cool to manage hardware. It's actually, in my opinion, I like it more than managing people, because there's two different career paths you can take. You can manage the hardware, you can manage the people and make sure that, they're showing up on time and doing their performance appraisals. But when you manage hardware, you're more focused on the schedule and getting it out the door. And it's very, very goal oriented, and it's focused on the schedule. So you're asking people to help you out to get it out the door, but you're not the boss per se.
Yeah, that would be a good job to have, not having to be upset with people because they don't get to work on time.
Yeah, no, it's great. They have other bosses for that. So
Yeah.
you just, you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. One of the students, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, but what is the best part of your job?
Definitely the hands-on. So, there are other hardware managers that manage hardware that is being built by other companies. The hardware that I work on is all being built in-house. So if there's not a global pandemic, I can actually go and see the hardware being built and tested in person, and then you get to actually go and get launched and see it fly. So seeing that come full circle is definitely the best part.
Yeah, just when it actually goes up. Successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a student that wants to know, what advice do you have for an aspiring astro engineer?
So I would say if you want to get into the aerospace field, you can pursue a degree in that. And in order to get yourself to the position where you are prepared to pursue that degree, a lot of math and science is very important to get you there. When I was at the University of Kentucky, we actually didn't have an aerospace engineering program. We only had mechanical, and I ended up going that route, and it ended up working out well for me. I later learned that aerospace engineering is a lot of computer programming, whereas mechanical engineering is a little bit more hands-on, and you're able to be very diverse with that degree. So you can go into the aerospace field, and you're not actually pigeonholing yourself into that. You have other options too. So I'd say just keep your options open and focus on math and science.
What are some college degrees that, lend itself to working at NASA the most? Like if you walked in the door, you would see what kind of people?
Engineering, any kind of engineering. So it's interesting because I'm in project management now. If you look at what degrees are required for my job, an engineering degree is required. So it's not a business degree, it's an engineering degree, and that's a requirement. So if you really they're mostly mechanical engineers, so there are aerospace engineers, there are chemical engineers and electrical engineers. So there are even civil engineers. So really any kind of engineering can set you up for pretty much any job at NASA.
And computer science engineering is kind of part of engineering as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, because that's what my son's majoring in.
That's also very important. Yes, he can definitely work at NASA. Yeah, that's like magic, what those will do.
Yeah, well, let's hope he's got to graduate first. Okay, so, yeah. Have you ever met an astronaut or any other cool people?
I have, yes. So in 2015, I did a 6-month detail to headquarters in Washington, D.C., and I worked as the special assistant to the head of NASA, and at the time that was Charlie Bolden. And he was a former astronaut. He was a space shuttle astronaut. He went up a couple of times on the space shuttle. So I really got to know him because I was working as his assistant. And then through that opportunity, I also had the opportunity to meet other astronauts. The head of the Science Mission Directorate, John Grunfeld, he actually went on the last mission on the shuttle, and he went on a couple of shuttle missions to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. So definitely got to meet quite a few astronauts that way. And then other interesting people. So I got to go to London while I was on that detail, and we actually went to Cambridge, and I got to meet Stephen Hawking at his office there, which is probably the coolest person that I've met. I also met his daughter, Lucy Hawking, and then, I don't know, do kids still know who Bill Nye the Science Guy is?
Oh, yeah. My kids do.
Okay, I got to meet him at the. Okay, good. Yeah, so I met Bill Nye at the White House. There was a science fair there, so students from all over the country were there, showing off their science, and the NASA administrator, of course, was there, and so was Bill Nye. So I got to meet Bill Nye the Science Guy.
All right, that's pretty cool. In doing this interview, I did a little research, and I had to do some corroborating, of my facts here to prove that you were really a Leestown alumni. So, yes, I'm a hard-hitting journalist. I told you that. So, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to share my screen for a second because I have a little surprise.
All right, I'll hit stop sharing. Oh no.
So my source.
Me from 20 years ago.
Maybe more. One of my sources shared this with me, which was pretty cool. Hold on. And I don't know if you can see this, but this is you with Stephen Hawking. Can everybody see that? Do you see that okay, Allyson?
Yes.
Yes. So here you are with Stephen Hawking, which is pretty neat. And if you could tell us just a little bit about, there was an activity or something that you did with Stephen Hawking that was really cool. Oops.
Okay, yes. So Stephen and Lucy Hawking, so Lucy's his daughter, they have a children's series called George. And it's a fictional series about a kid who travels around space. And they actually asked me to contribute to this book, which is George and the Blue Moon. And I contributed an essay to that called Building Rockets for Mars.
Wow, yeah, that is really neat. And it just so happens that my source gave me a book, and she is going to get your signature to put in the book so that we can have this in the Leestown Library. So this was very exciting. I'm excited to read it. It's George and the Blue Moon, like a Doctor Who adventure, and I don't know about you, but I do like Doctor Who, so I'm going to be excited to read this. So yes, and here's the picture again of you and Stephen Hawking, which is really neat. So let's see. There's another question about, are there any teachers you remember from Leestown? Did you know Mr. Gibson, who is our principal right now, who worked there then, when you were a student?
So I don't remember Mr. Gibson. I do remember some teachers, and I don't know if they would still be there. So my science teacher was Mr. Young. He ran the science club. He actually took the science club to DC. So that was an impression. And then also Mr. Milanich, and then my French teacher was Madame Renaud. I don't know if she's still there. And I remember Miss Donato. I actually only went to Leestown for 7th and 8th grade, so I didn't have the opportunity to have her as a teacher, but a lot of students knew who she was when I was there 20 years ago.
I believe Mr. Gibson was a social studies teacher, so you may not have met him. And I think he taught 6th grade, so. Okay,
There you go.
the last question I have before we do the big reveal is, and this is, we need the truth on this one. Is Area 51 a real thing? And if so, what kind of activities happen there?
Yes, Area 51 is real. The government used to deny it, but in 2013, Barack Obama actually did announce that Area 51 does exist. It's an Air Force installation, and we don't really know what happens there. All I know, but it is still active.
Did they really do the rating
I
of
will
it
say,
last year?
I don't know. I heard about that, and I don't know if they actually rated it or not. So no one really heard about the outcome of that. So maybe they found the aliens. I don't know
what happened
but
to those people.
Speaking of alien stuff, yeah. Speaking of alien stuff, I mean, I think that is a good question to, is there life out there? And that's a big part of what, NASA is looking at is, are there aliens? Is there life out there? And recently, one of our probes did find some chemicals in the atmosphere of Venus that are indicative of life, which was really surprising because Venus is one of the most harsh planets, and it's the last place we would have looked for life. So it's just chemicals. It still needs to be proven, but there are signs that there's life out there.
All right. Okay, so to verify you were a former Leestown student, we had to do a little research here. So we were able to find you here in the 8th grade Leestown yearbook. So we will, there you are. There's your name. You were Allyson Durborough then. And here is the proof, Leestown. Here's the yearbook. So she is technically a alumni here. And I'm sorry, but we got to do it. Here you are in 8th grade. So it was very exciting when we found you in the archives of Leestown Middle School. Sometime when you are back.
Funny. I feel like I look like. Oh yeah, I was gonna say I feel like I look like my little brother there. That's so funny.
Well, sometime when you are in Lexington and there's not a pandemic going on and you're not having a baby, we would like for you to come back to the school and check it out. And as is customary, we usually give our guests a Leestown t-shirt. So we'll have to send that through my source that I that I have. But my source is her mother is my daughter's figure skating coach. So that's where I get all my dirt. But anyway, and Allyson used to figure skate and do ballet as well, right?
That's true. Yeah, I did.
Well, I think we've pretty much spent our hour here kind of getting to know you and learning about your job. And I mean, wow, what an interesting thing. And the cool thing is people can come to Huntsville and they can go to the Marshall Field Center and they can go to the Space Camp Center there. And we did that as a family one time, and we got to actually go out to where they were doing the experiments and talking to the people on the International Space Station, and it was really a neat thing to do. So if you're ever in that area, I highly recommend it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's a great resource. We love the Space and Rocket Center, and you can learn a lot there. And yeah, go to Space Camp. You can go all the way through high school.
Yeah.
And as an adult too.
Yeah, I have fun every time I go, so. All right, well, we will sign out now, but thank you so much from Leestown. We're proud to have you as a alumni, and you're always welcome to come visit anytime.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, goodbye, and bye, students. Till next time, we have our famous alumni show. We'll be back and keep reaching for the stars, right?